Today, I mean, we really have to pay homage to those that led the struggle, the likes of Sadara Kairaba Jawara, who, as we all know, I mean, this iconic international conference center is named after him, and many others who, you know, were part of the struggle to ensure, I mean, the Gambia, I mean, gained independence from British rule on 18 February 1965. At this moment, I will invite our panelists for part 2 of this panel discussion. I will invite Pastor Francis Forbes, like I said, who is a renowned Gambian minister, educator, and motivational figure. Pastor, welcome to the high table. From Pastor Forbes, I will now invite Aissatou Jammeh, who is a human rights advocate and social worker with over 5 years of experience supporting victims in the Gambia. Aissatou Jammeh. Aissatou Jammeh is, okay, Aissatou is. Also joining the panel is Anna Njai, who is a seasoned legal expert with over 16 years of experience in civil and commercial litigation. Anna, welcome. And I have Professor Jibril Fall, renowned multidisciplinary business and development executive, who is also the co-founder of GK Partners, I mean the implementing agency of the Migration and Sustainable Development Project in the Gambia. I now invite Mrs. Ndai Siren J. Bakrin, who is a seasoned environmental manager and sustainable development expert with over 29 years of experience. Now you're welcome to the high table. And those at the back, if you can please you know, occupy the front seats, it will be better. You can just come forward and occupy the front seats, please, if you don't mind. Thank you for your understanding. Finally, I invite Mr. Demba Kande, a Gambian journalist, academic, and media freedom advocate. Mr. Demba Kande. So those at the back, you can kindly, you know, come forward and occupy, I mean, the front seats. So our first speaker for this panel discussion will be Pastor Francis Forbes. Like I said, he is a renowned Gambian minister, educator, and motivational figure. From winning a piano prize at 14 to earning a biochemistry degree, he founded the Abiding World Ministers in 1998, dedicating over 3 decades to empowering individuals through preaching, teaching, and mentorship. His weekly GRTS telecast, Discovering Truth, has made him a household name, earning him the title, the nation's pastor. In 2019, he established the Forbes Academy, offering training in leadership, public speaking, and team building. Recognized with the member of the Order of the Republic of the Gambia in 2008, Pastor Forbes continued to inspire through his ministry, international engagement, and transformative initiatives. Pastor Forbes, welcome and share your perspectives, I mean, in relation to the theme of the Independence celebration, which is marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon or good evening to you all. And I express my thanks to the organizers.
Just a quick one. As part of the rules, I mean, we expect all of you to make your statement within 10 minutes at least, so that, you know, we stay within time, because as you know. So at least all of you, within 10 minutes, you should be able to summarize whatever you are supposed to share with us. I know you have a lot to talk about, but I mean, due to time factor. Thank you.
So this time is not added.
No, it's out.
Okay, so we start. As I was saying, greetings to you all, and thanks to the organizers, and thanks especially to my classmate, Ami Bojang. We're classmates in Gambia High School in 1976. So we're rolling almost 50 years. I didn't say anything, I said we were classmates in 19. Amen. I've taken note of the many topics chosen to discuss this Diamond Jubilee Independence Anniversary Celebrations theme, which is marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development. So the purpose of my own topic is to give you the Christian perspective, a perspective that is well worth paying very keen attention to so that we understand it and emulate it and not just think we know what it is. Christianity is a faith and persuasion based upon a personal transformational encounter and relationship with Jesus Christ as Savior, Lord, Redeemer, and Messiah, or in Arabic you say Al-Masihu. It is not necessarily group dynamic, so it's not just an Aku, Catholic, Jola, Manjago, Karonika preserve. It is personal and open to anyone and everyone. So from this encounter and relationship, a passionate, committed, surrendered, what I call a sold-out lifestyle emerges, and it grows into maturity, positively affecting our lives in 3 dimensions. The first is our continued upward relationship with God, our Heavenly Father, from where we draw our daily strength, our purpose, and our life meaning. My TV program is 28 years and 8 months old. And people ask me, how do you do it? Because when you sustain something for almost 30 years, you either run out of ideas or you are tired, but what is it? It's born out of an encounter, a relationship. It's not being called John or Mary or being born in a house that has nice flowers. It's personal. The second thing is that this encounter affects our interactions with other such believers to strengthen and edify and build us up the same way iron sharpens iron. So it motivates us. And thirdly, this association affects our interaction with everyone else outside of these first 2 spheres, causing us to live lives that witness to and for Jesus Christ in his transformative power in our lives. Because we first are before we do. Our doing comes from our being. This ethos, ladies and gentlemen, is at the very center and core of our lives, presenting the Lord Jesus Christ and his kingdom in a humble yet dignified and exemplary manner as a witness, especially to a watching and scrutinizing audience made up of our fellow citizens and others, even and especially the underaged and the youth, who see everything happening, everything reported on social media, and they watch to see our sincerity and our genuineness, if it's of any worth to their own life, and whether they should stay here, work here, live here with patriotism, or bid us goodbye, take other citizenships, and come on holiday. In our growing relationship with Jesus Christ, in our surrendered life, we get to understand from the Bible that we are the light of the world. We are the salt of the earth. Salt doesn't have to be in billions of grams to affect soup. Almost all recipes talk about a pinch of salt. So 1, 2, 3, 5 in a community ought to be effective. We are also taught from the Bible to be witnesses of what we have experienced. We also get to learn from many other Bible verses which instruct us on how to live our work life, our school life, our family lives, our business lives, and how we should live and walk out of and from reverence to God, who sees us all the time, everywhere, when everybody else doesn't see us. So we operate and function with integrity, with good conscience, peacefulness, and keeping our word of honor Because we carry his name. That's why it's not just you are born John, you are born Mary, and you go to this church. There has to be a personal transformation that you can say, at this point, something triggered something else in my life. So it is our Christian values, our ethos, and our ethics that mold us into a people whose love for and worship of God directly translates into our love for our country, for her true independence, prosperity, togetherness, and peace, including, of course, self-reliance and national development. This is what makes us live the lives that witness for Jesus everywhere you see us. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, self-reliance from the Christian worldview and also for the true believer is a lifestyle choice. A lifestyle choice that comes from our source, our true north, seeking to please him and glorify his name in all we do. It is what makes us not change 3 to 8 and 1 to 9 in accounts. Because we know that even though nobody can see us physically, somebody else can see us from eternity into time, back into eternity. So we put our all in our work, and as a non-negotiable extension of our worship of God. We don't have two lives. Our Sunday life, and then Monday we are crooked till Saturday, and then we come back. No, it's one life. We put our all in our work as a non-negotiable extension of our worship. And we learn to excel in all that we do so that we can also exchange fairly and ethically our training, our knowledge, our skills, our acumen, and our equity for decent and respectful remuneration in cash or kind. I think that's fair. We learn to be content. Contentment is not a Karolinka thing. It's not an Aku thing. Contentment is a Christian thing, and that comes from a relationship. We learn to be content. We learn to be dignified. We learn to be patient, certainly not laid back. We learn to be respectful and respectable in all that we do. We learn not to be inordinate in our expectations, our appetites, and our demands. We learn not to be greedy, jealous, envious, and hateful of anyone progressing properly. Because our reactions and responses, ladies and gentlemen, are a reflection of who we believe in, who we worship, and from whom we get our strength and the grace, favor, and wisdom to work and to relate. And that adds value to our national desire and drive for self-reliance and true lasting national development. And not just infrastructural development, good as that certainly is, but lasting human capacity building, confidence, and patriotism in God. As I close, we learn from the Bible that though we are essentially interdependent with others, our interdependence comes from each Christian individual's connection with Jesus Christ that causes us to openly live out his teachings, his principles, his doctrine in a noticeably adorable and positively enviable way, stirring up others and causing searching questions to be asked, and hopefully leading to a win-win lifestyle outcome for our nation's vision and objectives, which include true self-reliance and real national development. So for the Christian and for biblical Christianity, self-reliance does not and cannot just come from how well-read we are, how widely exposed, widely traveled, economically endowed with her, but rather all this will always point back to God, to his grace and enablement upon our lives, so that our lives and living always give glory to him. There can be no meaningful, time-tested, and lasting national development and economic prosperity with self-reliance outside of these parameters, principles, and paradigms of the Christian. And indeed, for any genuinely God-fearing, country-loving citizen, Ladies and gentlemen, we have a true north. We have a source. We have a point of reference, without whom everything we do has no meaning. Because this true north causes us to see ourselves in others, to love, to embrace, to support, to uplift, and never to hate, never to disdain, never even to mock or taunt people. So I present to us all as a nation the Jesus model and the Christian ethos for self-reliance. And I also call upon everybody who wears this badge of honor as being Christian to live this way. And added to every other thing we have had this morning and what you'll hear after me, if we put them together, I believe we will soon be seen as people making the required and necessary national lifestyle adjustments. And in the sacred words of our national hymn and anthem, we'll be striving, working, and praying so that we all live in unity, proving man's brotherhood, as together we worship and serve this great God of nations. I wish us all a happy 60th Independence Anniversary, Diamond Jubilee celebrations, and may we live together as one people under God and become the true smiling coast of Africa. I thank you all for your kind attention, and may God keep us all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Forbes, for those insightful remarks. I would like to urge the rest of the panelists to brief their presentations and also within the time frame. Next on the panelists, I would like to introduce Ms. Aissatou Jammeh, a human rights advocate and social worker with over 5 years of experience supporting victims in the Gambia. She co-founded the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations and hosts the Victims podcast, amplifying victims' voices and promoting the TRRC report. With a background in social work and media, she has gained national and international recognition, including participation in the IVLP on Women Promoting Peace. Recently confirmed as a commissioner for the Victims Reparations Commission, she continues to advocate for justice and victims' rights. Aisha, welcome to the podium.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, everyone. I stand on existing protocols. It's quite unfortunate we have a half room. Wish we could have had a full room today to really listen to what I really have to say, because transitional justice is something that is very close to my heart. And I think it's one thing that should be everybody's business in Gambia. But unfortunately, I'll just go ahead. In honor to stand before you today, it's an honor to stand before you today on this significant occasion as we march in solidarity for self-reliance and national development. This gathering is a testament to our collective commitment to ensuring justice and accountability and a future where no citizens suffers the injustice of the past. Far too long, survivors of human rights violations, conflict, and oppression have struggled not only for justice, but also for dignified livelihoods and a fulfilled participation in national development. Today, as we reflect on how survivors can be self-reliant in national development, we must acknowledge a fundamental truth of a nation that cannot develop if it does not reckon with the past, provide justice to victims, and ensure that such violations never occur again. Justice is not just about punishing the perpetrators. It is about restoring dignity, repairing harm, and ensuring that survivors of human rights violation can rebuild their lives without fear, stigma in the society. It is important to acknowledge reparation and institutional reforms that guarantee survivors a rightful place in our society. To achieve true self-reliance, Survivors must see justice not as a distant promise, but as a lived reality. Those who were unlawfully detained, tortured, lost their loved ones to enforced disappearances, extrajudicial executions, sexual and gender-based violence, should see that justice is served at the end of the day. And justice is not just about a lip service, but to ensure that it happens to the fullest by making sure perpetrators who bear the highest responsibilities of crimes are prosecuted, adequate reparations paid to victims, and ensuring that victims, especially those who have been accused of being witches, live in a society whereby they don't continue to face the stigma that the society is still giving them. Self-reliance means economic independence. Survivors must be provided with access to skills, trainings, entrepreneurship opportunities, and financial resources so that they can thrive on their own. The government and private sectors must work together to create survivors-focused economic programs, ensuring that victims of past human rights violations are not left behind in our nation development. We must also challenge the culture of dependency. Survivors should not have to rely on charities to survive, but they should be empowered. They must be given opportunities to work, own businesses, and contribute to our national economy with dignity and pride. Knowledge is power, and education is key to long-term reliance. Survivors must have access to quality education, vocational training, and leadership development programs that allows them to take active roles in governance, businesses, and civil society. But education is not only about learning the skills, it is also about ensuring that our history is not forgotten. And I think this is one thing that we as a country need to ensure that it's taught in schools, because Gambia had been through 22 years rule dictatorship, and we still have victims that are going through the impact of the violation that was meted on them. And I think it would be fair enough for the young ones that are growing to really know that these violations occurred in this country, and people still have the lasting impact in their lives. And children that are going to school really need to understand that these things happen. Survivors are not just victims of the past. They are witnesses to history and agents of change. Their voices must be centered of governance and policy making. No policy on transitional justice, human rights, and national development should be made without the direct involvement of victims of human rights violations. We must ensure survivors are represented in parliament, in local councils and decision-making bodies where they can shape policies as well. Self-reliance is not just about economic stability again. It is about psychosocial support, medical support for the victims that are still living the impact of the violation that was meted on them. Many survivors continue to struggle with trauma, stigma, emotional burden of injustice. Without proper mental health support, their potentials for contributing to national development remains limited. We must invest in trauma counseling communities, healing programs, and support networks that help survivors of human rights violations regain their confidence, dignity, and sense of belonging. A healed survivor is stronger and a more active citizen who can fully engage in building a future. Distinguished guests, fellows, and everybody in this room today, if we are to march in solidarity for self-reliance and national development, we must also march for truth, justice, and commitment to ensure the never again mantra is achieved, allowing the injustice of the past to define our future. This means strengthening the rule of law and ensuring no leader of institutions is above accountability, enforcing legal policies reforms that protects human rights and prevent future abuses, honoring the memory of victims. And I think memorialization as well is a very key component of transitional justice, which as a country we should also look into. Justice is not a favor, it's a right, and a nation that denies justice to its people cannot truly claim to move forward. Today, we're not just marching for remembrance, we are marching with purpose, with vision, and with unwavering commitment to future where survivors are no longer left behind. Support them and walk along them in the journey towards self-reliance and national progress. Finally, let us build a nation where justice is served, where survivors thrive, and where promise of the never again is not just a word, but reality. Together, let us march forward in solidarity for justice, self-reliance, and for a stronger nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aissatou Jammeh. Justice is not a favor, it is a right. And as we move as a country, it is important that, like you said, the plight of the victims are considered at all times. Thank you very much, Aissatou. Our next panelist is Anna Njai. Like I said, she's a seasoned legal expert with over 16 years of experience in civil and commercial litigation, alternative dispute resolution, and women and child rights. She holds an LLB, BA in banking, economics and law, and an LLM in employment law. Anna has significantly contributed to the Gambia's legal system, including serving as supporting counsel to the Commission of Inquiry into former President Yahya Jammeh's financial activities and helping develop the Judiciary Strategy Plan 2021-2025. As president of the Female Lawyers Association, the Gambia, FLAG, she has led initiative to combat gender-based violence and improve access to justice, collaborating with international partners like the EU, UNICEF, and UNDP. Anna is also an educator and trainer focusing on labor law and women's rights, and is now establishing her solo legal practice to continue her advocacy and consultancy work. Anna, you're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I hope there is no Joben sleeping here at the moment. Okay, it's a great honor to stand here today, being a granddaughter of one of the founding fathers of the independence of the Gambia. So I'm really honored and proud that I stand here today to give my contribution. The topic I've been assigned to talk about is quite very broad, very important, but I will try to talk on key areas which I feel it's relevant for the team we have today in celebration of the 60th anniversary of our independence. We all know that over the recent years, we have witnessed notable reforms aimed at stimulating economic growth, strengthening governance, and expanding social services. Yet, we can all agree that we still have laws that are outdated, laws that are still under debate before Parliament, and partial implementation of some of our laws. So I would like to focus on three key areas which I think is relevant to help self-reliance and national development. First, constitutional reforms, strengthening the rule of law, and some sector-specific legal frameworks. Our Constitution is more than a legal document. As a nation, we have to understand that the Constitution is the embodiment of our nation's highest values and aspirations. In 2020, a new draft constitution was presented to the National Assembly. However, it did not garner support. And last year in 2024, a constitutional bill was introduced to replace the 1997 constitution. We could all agree that these are all efforts of reflecting our commitment to update governance, anti-corruption measures, and decentralization. So what have we seen as we try to renew our constitution? We have, as a country, laid promising foundation for a more inclusive constitution that reinforces checks and balances, protects fundamental human rights, and devolves power to local councils. We have renewed our offer to enshrine clear public financial management provisions that will ensure accountability at every level of government. As we all know, we have the Office of the Ombudsman, but it is critical for Gambia as a country to have in its constitution an anti-corruption commission provision to also deal with issues of corruption and be free from political interference. Protection of human rights has always been in our constitution. What we could see in the draft constitutions, both in the 2020 and the 2024, that both drafts aim to strengthen property rights, freedom of speech, and women's rights as a cornerstone of a stable, equitable society. As we revive constitutional reforms, we must ensure that these protections are robust, particularly for rural communities, vulnerable to land grabbing and resource mismanagement. So it is therefore important for us to really have a constitution as a Gambia. It's the basic, it's the mother of all laws. All what we are doing today will not hold water if the constitution is not there for the people. And this is a constitution that should reflect the will of the people. So I think as for Gambia to strengthen self-reliance and national development, we should all ensure that it is first embedded in the constitution. Then we can look into laws that will support the constitution. Strengthening the rule of law. I think somebody mentioned rule of law, it's a broad concept, but in simple terms, it means everybody must follow the law and everybody must abide, from the president to the youngest gentleman on the street. We must follow the law, because if we don't follow the law, or if we don't implement and enforce the law, all what we are doing will not come to us we intended. So how do we manage to get this done? There are some key institutions in the Gambia that we really need to empower. We have the judiciary. I will commend the government for Gambianizing the judiciary of the Gambia. We have more judges. We now have the modernization of the judicial system, but there's a lot that needs to be done. And I think it is high time that the judiciary is not treated as an arm of government, but as, sorry, it's treated as an arm of government and not a ministerial institution. And its budget should be really decided by the National Assembly directly. Secondly, as mentioned by my sister there, Aisha, the TRLC recommendations. I think the recommendations from the TRLC basically address all the issues that we need in institutional reforms. And like she said, it is not just to be mentioned. We have to have laws that will ensure that, you know, the recommendations come to pass. The police and the law enforcement agencies, these are critical institutions in the Gambia. You cannot talk about self-reliance and development when your security is at stake. We have currently the Police Act, which is under review. The Criminal Code is under review. But is it important that these legislations are passed and the police are given more investigative powers to prosecute economic crimes like land fraud and illegal fishing? We all know about the problems that we face in land in the Gambia. I think Mr. Mort Seka did mention about the national policy that is being developed for the national land policy. And I hope that this policy will take into consideration some of the issues that we have when it comes to land. Another key area which is very passionate to my heart, it's legal aid. As we all know, I could say almost 90% of Gambians cannot afford legal services. Fine, I'm a lawyer, but I do give free legal aid because I'm the president of the Female Lawyers Association. And our association is there to promote the rights of women and children in the Gambia by providing free legal services. But if we want to develop as a nation, Gambians must have access to justice. And if you cannot access the justice because of limited resources, then I don't think we could develop as a nation when we're talking about self-reliance. We have the National Legal Aid Agency. I'm glad the chairperson is here sitting today, but I believe this is an agency that the government should really fund to support giving services to Gambians. They do provide service when it comes to the criminal justice system, but Gambians, the average Gambian who has a simple civil matter and cannot afford a lawyer may go to the justice system without getting a solution that they desired. So it's really something that I would call on the government of the Gambia to look into the National Legal Aid Agency and also ensure that we have more mobile courts in underdeserved regions. It is sad to say that we have only 2 courts in the regions, and imagine a woman coming all the way from another region just to go to another court in another region to get access to justice, I don't think that's fair for Gambia. So looking at some key areas, legal frameworks that I feel we also need to look at, I wouldn't say we haven't done. We have done a lot. When I go to conferences in other jurisdictions, I say Gambia, we're very good at making legislation, but sometimes our problem is the implementation and providing the funding to support those legislation. So I think it's important that some key areas that we need to look into if we want to have self-reliance and promote national development. We have the Gambian Investment and Export Promotion Agency, GIPA, and the Single Window Registry, which has basically streamlined businesses in the urban area. However, it's still a problem for someone in Kulora to register a business, because we don't have a business registry in Kulora. We have everything is centered in the urban areas. I know the Minister of Justice is in the process of decentralization, but if we want to have self-reliance, I believe that all the regions in the Gambia, and every Gambia, should have similar services wherever you are. Land resources. My sister here mentioned about the issue of land. I was privileged to be part of a study in the preparation of a guide on women land rights in the Gambia. And talking to women farmers, you know, sometimes I even cry when they talk about their stories. They keep on saying we cannot be 70% of the farmers, and we cannot say we have a land. Anywhere you go to in the Gambia, they ask you, how can you help us to get our land? So I am privileged to be part of the committee that's looking into the national planning, national policy for, the national land policy. And I hope that the views that we are going to share in terms of women land rights in the Gambia will be taken into consideration by the government of the Gambia. We've mentioned about the TVET, and I think what we could do as a nation, we could revise the Education Act. We should legislate for business incentives to provide paid apprenticeship, so that when these young Gambians, you know, go through the TVET system and they come out, they go into Gambian businesses and they are paid and trained so that they can have a source of living as well as trying to gain apprenticeship. So I think this is something that we should take into in terms of our education system to basically develop the skills of young Gambians. Not everyone can be a doctor, everyone can be a lawyer, but there are certain people that have skills that we need to support. And I think the only way we could, you know, push some of the private businesses is to put in laws that you have to take into consideration that every business should take this number of, you know, skilled, trained Gambians from this institution. That's the only way I think that, you know, we could encourage businesses to support skills training. Also, in the health center, we have in the health sector, we have the National Health Build. But what I think we could do as well is to ensure that every health center or every hospital has minimum standards or equipments that are needed right across all health centers and hospitals. We cannot say when we go to Bansang, we have a different standard than when we go to Banjul. The standard we have in Bansang Hospital should be the same standard we have in Banjul Hospital, so that people do not have to travel from far to look for health service in Banjul. I think this is something that we need to look into. Also, we need to support our own. I think the earlier speaker, Mr. Ja, mentioned about how do we make Gambia first. I think laws can be used for that. If there is a law that would state that any investor that comes into Gambia must employ or work with certain companies, then that will help Gambian companies to grow so that they can also learn skills. I know you have in the Labor Act that, you know, the expatriate quota, but even with that, I think there's more that needs to be done. I think foreign businesses should be mandated to partner. If I'm not mistaken, I think in Dubai, if you want to open there as a foreign business, you have to, you know, work with certain institutions or certain companies for you to flourish. So I think there's a way that government could use legislation to help self-reliance and national development. So we have very, very good policies that I believe that, could be transformed into law and help in self-reliance and national development. And one of them is the national energy policy. I know it's there, it's new, but I really urge the government to look into renewable energy and using local means of making renewable energy available to Gambians. I know I'm trying to just go through the brief points that I have. I wish I had more time to go into other areas. But what is important as a Gambia, we need to have the constitution. It's just like building a house and you don't have a foundation. Everything else will crumble. And I think we need to, as a Gambia, we need to have a constitution that works for Gambia. It's good to emulate other laws in other countries. Rwanda is an example. When they came from the genocide in 1994, they decided on what they feel Rwanda needs and not what the outside world thinks Rwanda needs. I think when we start thinking like that, we should be able to achieve what we want. So as a last call, like my dad always tells me, as Gambians, even if we have the best laws, even if we have the PhD presidents, the PhD judges, if our mindset doesn't change, nothing changes. So I ask for everyone to change their mindset. Thank you very much. And that was Ms. Njai sharing prospects on what legal framework can safeguard self-reliance in national development. Next on the panelists, we have Professor Jibril Fall, a renowned multidisciplinary business and development executive, co-founder of JK Partners and director of the MSDG project, supporting the Gambia's government. He serves as a visiting professor at the London School of Economics, a council member of the Carnegie African Diaspora Program, and a lead consultant of the African Union Commission on Innovative Finance. Recognized with an OBE in 2014 and an audience with Pope Francis in 2020. He has held leadership roles such as Vice Chair of Bond UK, Chairman of Afford UK, and Founding Director of Africa Europe Diaspora Development Platform. With over 30 years of experience, he has advised the UN, World Bank, and EU, and addressed the UN General Assembly. Professor contributed to global migration and development policies, including founding Remit Aid, a remittance matching funding mechanism. Professor, welcome to the podium.
Assalamu alaikum. Honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm asked to speak about how can the diaspora contribute to self-reliance and national development. So I immediately propose a minor edit to say, how can the diaspora expand and enhance their contribution? Because they already do. So it's about expanding and enhancing. I'm going to make 3 broad recommendations. And I will put it in the context, of course, for which we are here. That is the 60th independence celebrations. On that momentous day, 1965, school children had trained for several days to sing the songs of independence. And some of the songs, the anthems, was not just the new national anthem, but anthems in local languages and songs in local languages. One young Gambian who was an instructor for the blind was a bit concerned about the wall of music that was played. He thought it lacked substance and the sense of the new nationhood. And he went to work, and he consulted education officials, and he gave us the wall of anthem known as Ligay Jotna, Gambia Amna Bopam. The time for work is now. Gambia is independent. For the WADA, that's the name, then added a line, Mune am sabopa, gadu sabopa koken. Indeed independence, but self-reliance is better. So from day one, self-reliance have been an issue. Today, we've heard the panel in the morning that gave evidence that there is no doubt that today Gambia is more self-reliant than it was 60 years ago. No doubt about that. But we are here to discuss self-reliance because the level of self-reliance that we want, we don't have it. That's why we are discussing it. But let's just, the easiest way to look at this is through money. It helps bring it home. If you are running your home, you give out subsistence money, depas or fish money every day. If you're not self-reliant, you will struggle on that, isn't it? Gambia, as we are today, in the year of our Lord 2025, amun depas le, mankena. According to the budget, for the past several years, about 35 to sometimes 40% of the money that we need every year comes through grants. That is the fact. So that's the self-reliance we need to correct. It's still a big job. The role of the diaspora is important because those grants and those support comes from people who are not Gambians. Over the years, we see them tell us what we should use the money for. We see them reduce the money. Sometimes they promise us and they don't. Of course, it's a gift. We cannot do much. But you have a group of Gambians who live abroad, the diaspora, who, if you take the grants that we receive, we heard from PS Seka earlier today that foreign direct investment have grown significantly since the end of dictatorship in this country. But it is now hitting the height of about $250 million, 250,000 million. That's what it's hitting. The aid fluctuates to 300 million, 350 million, whereas consistently the Gambian diaspora sent to this country over $500 million. We had in January this year when we had the 8th Stake in the Nation Forum, Central Bank of the Gambia told us it was $775.6 million. That's the one that's counted. No question asked. That one, we counted it, every dollar. The ones that are not counted, by the time you finish, is maybe $1.25 billion. Every year it's coming. So even if people, for whatever reason, do not like the diaspora, because they are too loud, they are too cocky, Hamunsen Bopa, still they are significant in maintaining every household in this country. Let's come back to those depas. Hamla depas we mankena. Why linjo hesi bopa, lisi opposite diaspora belejoge. Yeah? So it is a significant group, so that everything must be done to enhance and expand that inflow. So my recommendations goes along those lines. The first one is this: do not hinder, alienate, or otherwise discriminate against the diaspora. Right. Don't do that. They are your children, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins. Susa heldeme, singone merenalen. Stop yourself. They are your people. do not hinder them in any way whatsoever. So that's the omission. We heard the Chief Justice tell us in his lecture today, he introduced the concept of negligence and what it means in law. One of the concepts in law is to stop something, it's not only omissions but commissions. It's only not what you do, but what you stop doing. So for anybody, government, civil society, everybody else, if you're thinking of hindering a member of the diaspora in what they do, or alienate them, or discriminate against them, stop it. Omit that. Yeah, that's the omission. For today, and in the context of the national dialogue, the biggest thing that must be omitted is the diaspora not having their vote. That omission, that denial of access to right should end. What they do with their right, whether they vote for this political party or this political party, should be nobody's business. It is their right. Whether they choose to go stay at home and not vote, it's also their right. So that is perhaps currently the biggest demonstration of the discrimination that needs to end. But why is that relevant to self-reliance? They will continue to support, but if they feel alienated, some of the things they would otherwise have done, they wouldn't do because there is no motivation. So some of the savings they are holding abroad, they're sending the remittances, but the savings they're holding, they're not bringing here because there's still a bit of doubt. And I'll illustrate to you how important that is. We had 22 years of dictatorship. The diaspora kept a big chunk of their money at home. Now, as part of the democratic dividend, they are bringing huge sums. Data from Ministry of Finance tell us, if you see the graph of the growth in the importation of construction material, you take the one on remittances, you can put them together, it's the same line. Wow. It is the diaspora who are contributing to those buildings. So, and that's happening through what? The democratic dividend. That there's peace, there's harmony. So imagine then, if you then give them all of these other things, their rights and all that, you would see another dividend in the development sector. So the omission is stop the discrimination. Second is create the structures to allow for actual, virtual, and circular return. Not most of the diaspora don't want to return, and perhaps they shouldn't even return. They might be more useful to us being out there. But if there's need for something, say if you need a cardiologist at the hospital, and there is no cardiologist here, you can do something to try to get a Gambian one to come. So that is the actual one. The virtual one is with technology and the nature of work. Members of the diaspora can contribute significantly while staying at home. We had a beautiful and very good presentation earlier this morning from the young lady, Farmer Job, about tech, talking about telemedicine. You can have Gambian doctors doing operations while sitting there. That's virtual. And then you have circular return for a short time to do a piece of work and go back. And as we've heard from the president, an issue. All of this can be done today without any change of policy. The policies exist. Policies are beautiful. So it's just about getting it done. And the last recommendation is beyond creating the structures for return, actual, virtual, and circular, their diaspora. Sometimes they may even steal other people's diaspora. They literally do it by giving them papers. And it's not today, you know. They've been doing it. There was a famous incident where there was a Senegalese guy who once served as previously in his work, he was permanent representative of the Republic of Mauritania to the United Nations, but qualified for dual citizenship. Rwanda does it. They had a minister for infrastructure. He was head of the technical university. he's not Rwandese. And what did they say? Well, that's not a big deal. Make him Rwandese. Right. They gave him a about it. It's the work that matters. The Rwanda Social Security Board, you know, their job is the nicest job around. You sit every month and you collect money. That's your job. Yeah? They have a lot of money. They wanted to build thousands of houses. The person they thought was the best person, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, be careful. If we are not trying, they'll give him citizenship. Yep. His name is Chamno Gay. Yep. They gave Chamno the job. Point that this is the last recommendation. We must be proactive and go and find the governments. If you have a delegation going to discuss climate change, you are sure. Believe me, the team they would bring, the team alone would scare the hell out of you guys. They have everybody. You don't have it. So it's an unfair fight. Well, find your expert and just find to join your team. And I tell you, Gambian policy now allows that to happen. In fact, we piloted that in 20 compact on migration. 2 people represented Gambia. I was helped. The 2 people was the deputy permanent representative of the Gambia to the United Nations in New York, Mr. Fati, and the expert representing Gambia was a young lady called Dr. Saida Butal. In and out. Gambia benefited, no big deal. In that case, I don't want the job of the Mofa people. Nobody needs to be scared.
That's right.
Finally,
that's right.
Whenever we're in doubt as to how to guide ourselves, let's remember this. Development is about arithmetic. What's arithmetic? Add, minus, multiply, divide. Avoid subtraction. Avoid subtraction. Don't discriminate people. It's bad. Avoid division. Don't divide them, race, tribe. Bad. Focus on what? Addition and multiplication. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Jibril Fall. Quite insightful statement there. I mean, we cannot underestimate the critical role of the diaspora in the development of this country, having over 200,000 Gambians living outside of this country. And you know, many times when you talk about diaspora, people think it's only about people living in Europe and America. Even those in Senegal and Guinea-Bissau, they're all part of the diaspora. And I think it is important that their contribution is recognized, and laws are amended to cater for them, even to have the diaspora represented in National Assembly. I know it's a long process because our laws gives them as Gambians to vote, but you can only vote in a constituency, and the diaspora isn't democratic yet. So that's a process that we also have to see to be accomplished before they're able to vote. But it is important that the diaspora is allowed to vote and equally represented in the National Assembly. Up next, we have Mrs. Ndai Siram J. Bakun. She is a seasoned environmental management and sustainable development expert with over 29 years of experience. She is the executive director of Tango and former executive director of the National Environment Agency. With an MSc and BSc in environmental studies, she specializes in environmental policy, technical committee on land, environment, and natural resources, and also focuses on impact assessment, stakeholder engagement, and capacity building, making her a key figure in the Gambia's environmental sector. Madam Bakrin, the podium is yours.
I stand on exiting protocol. Good afternoon to everybody. When Ami calls, I have to answer because he's my sister. We went to school from Albion, Wesley, and then Gambia High School, all of us. So we're from the same batch with Pastor Forbes. And Pastor, I'm happy that he is here today because we knew when we were at school, he would just carry the Bible. So I knew you would become a pastor. It's a pleasure to be here, apart from being a Gambian and how to contribute today. But I'm standing here as the Executive Director of the Association of Non-Governmental Organization, Tango. I speak on behalf of that community today, not as an environmental specialist or so, even though that's my passion, yes. But I'm a development worker. And when we talk about Tango, Tango is an umbrella organization. And we have members working in different areas. And my topic deals with the role of NGOs, but like Professor Fall mentioned, I expanded to CSOs, because when you talk about CSOs, you also focus on other non-profitable organizations, community-based, and we have been having a proliferation of civil society organization, because now that's the time we are used to. During independent time, we only talk about we talk about NGOs, non-governmental organization, and community-based. Now the space is widening, different people are doing different things. And we are happy to be here because as Gambians and working in the area of non-profitable, non-state actors, we contribute also to development, sustainable development. And Tango has been around since 1983. And before that, we have international organizations and also local organizations, NGOs, that have been functioning. And they decided that we have to come together because speaking with one voice is very important. It's not everybody who is a member of Tango, but we represent the civil society, both members and non-members, because we are all operating in the same thing, and we are trying to see how we can all speak with one voice. Because this is important when we talk about self-reliance. It's very important, depending on which sector you are working. That is very important. And we promote this kind of thing within our own community. And civil society, or NGOs, like I said, we've been here since the 60s. For example, Gambia Family Planning has been here since the 60s. Now, Freedom from Hunger Campaign, they are stationed in LRR. They've been around since the 60s. Then you have international NGOs that come in the 70s, like Action Aid International. These are all institutions that are here that are working to contribute towards self-reliance and also contribute to sustainable development. I don't talk only about development. We want to have sustainable development because we do think about the economy, the social, and the environmental component. Even though they might not be on the same level, before people used to just talk about socio-economic. But we live in the environment. We have to consider those things. And that's why the SDGs, that is Sustainable Development Goals, are important. At Tango, our strategic plan is aligned the National Development Plan and also the SDGs, just showing that we complement government effort, the civil society, NGOs, because government must provide the enabling environment for us to operate. We are partners in development. That's what is important, because wherever you are standing, it's important you do your best. We've been hearing people talking about we need skills, we need this, we need that. All of us are coming from different sectors, but all of us have one thing in common: Gambia first. That's very important for all of us. Because as civil society, as NGOs, which areas do we work in? We contribute towards national development. You talk about service delivery. If you go to hard to reach or underrepresented areas, let's say go to Woolly, you'll find NGOs there and on a community base. Even CAFOs, they are civil society. They work with NGOs. So we've been around even before independence, and we will be around even after other things happen. So therefore, we are all partners in development. What is important, like they say in Wolof, busi nango nyao dang se rafet. Fanga tahaw bem jeka, and you do it well. And that's what we are doing. Also, as civil society, we advocate and policy influence. We've had people talking about some laws. Anna is a member of Tango, representing FLAG at our board, and they advocate a lot on women empowerment. And different organizations here between the civil society and NGOs, they advocate ensuring that people that are not well represented, the voice of the voiceless, they are heard in national policy discussions. I think this is very important. And we talk about gender platform, for example. And when it comes to service delivery, like I said, we have been doing that for a long time in the area of health issues. We also, agricultural support, we do all those things because these are very important things. I mentioned actually peace building. One of our organizations, for example, ONEP, they work with the interior, security, to make sure we contribute a lot in that area. You have YMCA, they've been since here in the 70s. They work with youth. Then we have children or child's right organization like CPA, and you have Child Fund. Before it was called the Christian Children Funds. They've been long and they've done a lot. For example, in West Coast, in the Fonies, they provide resources to kids, pay school fees. You have many people, even who are in the civil service or other places, who has been sponsored by, let's say, Child Fund. And they are making a difference. We also, area of capacity building, we do a lot of capacity building, empowering communities, women, children. And also, we provide training and resources to our own partners. Empowering is very important when we talk about self-reliance in development. And I always use the word sustainable development. When it comes to issues like transitional justice, I should just talk about those things. We advocate human rights. Social justice is very important. And these are areas we work on. Community mobilization are very important. And empowerment, I keep using this word because we do it at different levels. And as NGO civil society, we also react to issues like disaster response. We know some of these are man-made, but we have to help people. Because during the rainy season, sometimes we go and live in places where we shouldn't live. We don't take care of the environment. And we have man-made disasters. Others are not, of course. Taking into consideration issues of climate change. We work in the area of climate action. And also we talked about accountability, monitoring. Partnership and collaboration, I think that is very important. Like I mentioned earlier on, we as NGOs, civil society, we are here to complement government effort, and government must help us and work with us to provide the enabling environment. The laws are very important. Anna spoke about laws, but one important law which is not still in place is the NGO law. It's still a bill. We've been following up on that one. And we must have the right law, the law that helps us to carry out our work to contribute towards self-reliance and sustainable development. And as civil society, we believe in innovation and piloting projects at the community level. We do all these things because it's important, because to address some of the sustainable development challenges. And if it's successful, it can be scaled up by government, because government have the capacity to do those things, working with us. And of course, we advocate a lot, like I mentioned, for the sustainable development goal. I think this is very important. And as civil society NGOs, most of us, we know we get sponsors from outside, and the world is changing. We have to be more innovative now. Self-reliance, we have to look inwardly and see how we work better as partners in development. Government get a lot of projects. Somebody mentioned about grants. But how much of that grant is given or work with NGOs, as we contribute a lot to this kind of things? So funding is a challenge, because if you rely on somebody else, he will tell you, if you are using somebody's eye, they will tell you, look here, that's where you might want to look, even if you want to resist. So we need to work on that area. And one thing is important, coordinating. Also, restricting policies may hinder our operation, and we advocate that those things shouldn't happen. And it's good to consult us, because consultation makes a big difference. That's why dialogue is important. We are happy this is the second one. At our own level also, we have started having consultative, we call it engagement, stakeholder engagement. We invite government and other stakeholders so that we can work together and see how we can contribute towards national development. And at the same time, we then evaluate ourselves, how to improve for the next year. I think this is very important. And when you are working together, you have to evaluate each other. We are not competing, we are complementing, we are partners. But the perception of some people is like civil society, they are against it there. It's not that. And also generalizing that is wrong. I think that is very wrong. It's like some government institution, they work very well with NGOs, whilst others, they are more reserved. But that's it, like they said, Barami Emun, and then people see things differently. But I think what is important, Gambia first, and it keeps coming. We all have to work together as a team and work in our different sectors and put our effort together, having one goal, make sure our country is great, not great again, but great. That is very important for a country like Gambia. We have proven everybody wrong that we are viable and we can do it. We have the Singaporean dream. You know, if Singapore can do it, why not? Why not Gambia? We have to be hardworking, committed. Look at the hall. It's half full. I didn't want to, because we've been mentioning it. In the morning, people are here, but next time, it's because of Army, I have to come in the afternoon. Next time, if you don't put me in the morning, I'm not coming. Just that for the records. But we are happy to be here as Gambian, and also working in areas like gender advocacy, gender equality. These are very important. Somebody mentioned earlier on today, we are 52% of this nation and our land rights. Some NGOs, they work on this like Action Aid, because we should be given equal opportunity as much as the laws are here, but they should protect us, we as women, because it's our right to have land in our own name, because we happen to be natural resource managers, and apart from that, we are the backbone of the family. With all due respect to the men, yes, but opportunities must be given to all of us. And I think in terms of self-reliant national development, women must be given their place at all levels. Thank you very much.
Well, it is without doubt that NGOs are critical actors. That NGOs are critical actors to national development. Okay, then. Well, thank you, ma'am. And it is without doubt that NGOs are considered critical actors in national development. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Mr. Demba Kande, a prominent Gambian journalist, academic, and media freedom advocate. As country coordinator of Freedom House, he promotes democracy and human rights. A former lecturer at the University of the Gambia, Mr. Kande developed media curricula and trained journalists advancing the media sector. His research focuses on digital media used among young people, particularly on disinformation and media literacy. He is a key figure in the Gambian media landscape who holds a master's degree in journalism, media and globalization from the University of Aarhus and the University of Amsterdam. I would now like to invite Mr. Kande to the podium to share his perspective on the role of media in promoting national development.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The good news about coming at the end is that you don't have to repeat what everybody else has said. So I'm in good standing. All my elders and professors have spoken. So just as they've said, standing on existing protocol, I would like to also stress that the media's role is critically important in all of the issues that have been highlighted by the previous speakers, whether it is the role of the diasporas or increasing the diaspora's contributions to self-reliance and national development, or the role of NGOs and the role of victims in national development and so on and so forth. The media is a crucial partner in all of this. And that's why in the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia doesn't just guarantee the freedom and independence of the media, but also places a significant responsibility on journalists and the media to hold officials, particularly public officials, to account. And in fact, it goes further to single out public media to have the responsibility to allow for divergent views and opinions. This is important because whether it's in the Gambia or elsewhere, the media has played a crucial role in shaping narratives, fostering a culture or inspiring action for self-reliance, national development. However, in the Gambia, there are a lot of challenges that we face. I'm not going to waste a lot of your time because I know the Jolas and the Sarahs are eager to be home and eat their dinner. I'll focus on three key issues: on education, advocacy, and empowerment as important, with examples from our small history or brief history from the 1940s, 50s today. First, the media as an educator. We know that the media educates citizens on self-reliance and national development, and that's why the likes of Edward Francis Small and his Senegambian and other publications by William Dixon Colley and other Gambian journalists, veteran Gambian journalists, carry the voices of local people who were agitating for self-reliance and independence before independence. In the independence era, the media continued to play that role. For instance, Radio Gambia has been there before independence, but since independence, among other programs, one of the most treasured programs is Chosani Senegambia. It's one of those programs that the Gambia had a collaboration with our neighbor Senegal, and talked about the history of the Gambia in ways that were very uncommon, and talking about the history of Africa as told by Africans in our own ways and in our own languages. In its prime days, Chosani Senegambia had a lot of audience. In fact, it's said to be the one with the highest audience in not just the Gambia and Senegal than any other program that was broadcasted in the sub-region, either by GRTs or the Senegalese media. But beyond daily broadcasts on news and current affairs, we have seen documentaries, short documentaries, TV shows, talk shows, radio shows, local newspapers, who talk about the stories of successful entrepreneurs, successful development initiatives, whether it's with Tesito that was talked about earlier in the morning, or Ndekete Gambia, Munna Dem, and so on and so many other development projects that were led by the Gambian media. In fact, in this day and age, the Youth Dialogue on Key TV and other programs on GRTs and other media in the Gambia continue to move on with that mantle of calling for national self-reliance and national development. These programs empower individuals with knowledge and reduce dependency on foreign aid, as Madam Bukrin was alluding to earlier on. The media also has a role in terms of being an advocate for national development. We've seen this because the media amplifies the voices of voiceless and holds leaders accountable for development goals and aspirations that we have. In fact, that's one of the key principles that have been noted by the Constitution. For instance, in the Gambia, news outlets such as the Point newspaper, Foria, the Standard, and in the recent past, the Daily Observer, the Independent newspaper today, and a lot of other platforms, continue to talk about not just development, but also shine ills or shine light on public ills in order to promote awareness and transparency as a country. In fact, GRTS's Destination Gambia is one of the premier programs on national television talking about or promoting Gambia as a local destination for tourists, not just for outside, but also in the Gambia for Gambians to venture into. This kind of programming fosters a sense of collective responsibility and pride in national development, which is critical. However, it also must be noted that if there are any failures in terms of the role of the media in this sector, this has been a major issue. For instance, GRTS, for the better part of 22 years of Jammeh's regime, failed to amplify divergent views and hold leaders and public officials accountable for national development. In fact, some would even argue that in as recent as since the change in 2017, there have been cases where supposedly, where Gambia was supposedly free and fair, GRTS has censored divergent views. There are a lot of examples of arbitrary suspension of talk shows, and there have been in some cases flat refusal to cover certain activities or events because they don't align with the broadcasters' views and aspirations. And this, as far as we're concerned, affects the role of the role of GRTS as a broadcaster and also as a national duty bearer to publish and disseminate divergent public views and opinions. Similarly, the country's first ever privately owned television station is often accused of censoring critical voices on its, whether it's on its news and current affairs programs or other development programs. These are serious matters that the media must look into and correct if we are to continue to play our role in ensuring self-reliance and national development. Finally, I want to talk about the role of the media in terms of unifying a country such as ours. I talked about earlier on the fact that Edward Francis Small, Dixon Colley, and others, the likes of Data Hyderabad, the late Swabi Konate, the late Josh Christensen, just to name a few, use their pens and microphones to shepherd the Gambia through various rough patches in our national development, whether it was towards the path for independence or the 1981 chaos and the 1994 troubles and the 1994 to 2017 challenges under the dictatorship, and of course the 40 days or so of political impasse in 2017, 2016, the media continued to play its role as a unifying factor, reporting on critical national issues. Beyond that, in recent times we've seen the TRRC proceedings, whether or not we like Jammeh or not, the media brought proceedings of the TRRC into our rooms every day for a regular time. And during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the media collaborated with government and public institutions to roll out programs that are essential in educating the public about accurate information and uniting citizens to follow essential health guidelines in a crisis situation. Community radios cannot be forgotten in this case. In fact, they were critical in disseminating this information in rural areas in languages that the populace understood most in our communities. Therefore, a united population is important. In the media role in equipping a united population to tackle challenges of national development are essential. The challenges and way forward for us are essential. One is that despite the media facing all of these challenges, we have continued to make giant strides. The University of the Gambia established a School of Journalism as recent as 2014. Yes, that school is there. It has graduated several students, one of the finest Gambian journalists, but most of them, unfortunately, are not in the newsrooms as we speak. So therefore, we must make sure that we find them and bring them back to the newsroom, or as we graduate more people, we need to make sure that UTG, SDGM, MAJAG, and other journalism institutions can do more to align their curricula to the needs of the Gambia. And I'm saying this to speak because in today's world, we have a lot of issues surrounding the media, especially issues around misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. And those are issues that can fuel hatred and incite violence. We have a primary responsibility as journalists to make sure that we do not promote those kind of messages on our platforms. Media chiefs must hire professional journalists and pay them well to run their newsrooms and current affairs programs. Therefore, investment in the media and media infrastructure is not negotiable. Online media platforms play a crucial role in shaping the views and opinions of Gambians, whether it's What's on Gambia, Fatu or Fatu Network, or other over a dozen platforms. They share significant news and information daily. It's important that they are assisted and supported to continue to professionalize and standardize their reporting and contribute to self-reliance and national development. To conclude, the media has been a driving force in promoting self-reliance and national development. So I would say, therefore, do not fear the media, but strengthen the media. And in the words of a legend, let's not subtract, let's not divide. If and when the media occupies its role in promoting self-reliance and national development without any prejudice, the Gambia's journey to prosperity becomes not just a dream, but an achievable reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Demba Kande. Do not fear the media, but strengthen the media. Certainly, we have a very important role that we had and continues to play in the development of this country from independence to now. And that's the more reason why, I mean, this conversation is going beyond just this whole. I mean, it's being streamed live on TV and online. And so Gambians both at home and abroad are watching and hearing all what you are saying here, because all of us can fit here. Even if you bring the whole of New Media can fit here. So, I mean, because of the media, you have people, I mean, both here and abroad watching and, you know, getting to know what is being discussed here. But like you said, Demba, the media has been a key player in our struggle for independence. You mentioned the issue of, I mean, Edward Francis Small. I mean, we all know, I mean, his role in our fight for independence. I mean, he is well known for saying, no taxation without representation. And I mean, so that shows that, I mean, the media has been here and the media will continue to be here. I will now invite Mr. Sankano, who is going to, I mean, moderate the Q&A session. I mean, if you have any question for any of the panelists, I mean, get ready, the mic will come and then, you know, you can ask your questions. Mr. Sankano, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sise. Once again, thank you very much to our various illustrious panelists. I would like to inform you that we'll have a photo session with the panelists later on. The floor is now open for questions. Those who are having questions couldn't ask. Where's the mic? We now have two mics, one in front. I think we give the lady there was a cliffhanger on her. So we went for a break. Yes, welcome. Let's start with the lady and then we go back. I caught her before, fortunately. Yeah? Yeah, she can go ahead. Okay, no problem. You can give it us. Yeah, I guess. No problem.
You see, it's good to be an uncle in Africa. They always give privilege to elders.
For the back row.
Continue giving privilege to elders. I just want to say a few words. I only start hearing from Professor Farr, and he addressed sort of most of my concerns. Number one, just to be informed that my office, they have done a good job to include the diaspora in terms of voting and otherwise. But my question to you is, I have traveled all over the world and met many Gambians, all good organizations, institutions, from UN down to ECOWAS. You have
have Gambians, when they are out, they are very productive, very hardworking, highly respected. But when they are in the Gambia here, they are the most difficult people. Or they cannot help the country. Is it the problem is in the country or it is because of them? Because all the organizations, Islamic Development Bank, World Bank, UN, ECOWAS, AU, everywhere Gambians are running those institutions. And you go to other countries, their ministries, Gambians are there. But we cannot set ourselves properly. And the other thing, the diasporans also, though you advise us to include them, but I want to appeal to them also. I'm a diaspora, I was a diaspora one day. Yeah, let them not feel we are going to Gambia to help them. No, I'm here to help the government. No! They are not helping the government, they are helping themselves. It's their country. You see? You can come here and say, hey, no, I'm helping the boys. What boys? Who boys? Where are you helping? You're a Gambian. They should be here to work for themselves, for their country. Wherever they are, they may have passport there, they may have citizen there, but when things come to us, they are Gambians. So let them come with the intention, I'm going back to my country to do my quota and deliver my responsibility to my people. Then they will be fitting. Nobody will be able to squeeze them. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you. I want to give her the mic. No. Yeah, she'll come.
Thank you very much, Uncle, for giving me back the mic. Thank you to the distinguished panelists for very insightful, very great recommendations, very good treatment of your various subjects. Thank you, Prof. I have so much to say. Some of it has already been said, but I'll just quickly run through them. Self-reliance. I think, as somebody said, we could have the best brains, best everything, all the natural resources. I want to echo that we need change in attitude for the better. We need our good old traditional African values, which we have and had. And we really need to exhibit them. The work ethics, the punctuality, the diligence in everything that we do. I think with that, even without so much resources, look at where we are. We don't have diamonds, we don't have gold. We had groundnuts, and I think at one time cotton. I remember growing up. I don't know how that went. So it's very important that we change our attitude. We work together. We wish each other well. We know that everybody can only get your wursak. You cannot get somebody else's, and we help each other. Even you see that even with job advertisements. They only get drawn to your attention at the very last minute, and you can't even apply. And all along, some people have been holding it so really, we need to wish each other well. I mean, what the two religious leaders said, I think as a very religious country, we should really, if we go back to that, there's very little we can add to get to where we really need to get to. I just specifically on, I think every nation's most valuable resource is their human resource. And especially the young. I was heartbroken when I was going to court and I just saw so many people on Buckle Street, the passport office, trying to, and every single day up to now, they're flooding that place. Why? Because they need passports. They think they can only make it outside migration. So it's a problem. We've heard solutions here. We've heard what government is doing, TVET. We've heard Gambia. But we need to get to everybody. We need to get to people's minds. We need to get to them, to offer them something that will make them stay in this country. Otherwise, the next generation, especially the male, I mean, I always joke and say that our children perhaps won't have Gambian husbands because they'll all be out if we're not very careful. So we need to really, let's not just dismiss them as not wanting to work. Let's try to come up with ideas that would keep them here. I have a couple of questions. Maybe, I also think that the very little resources that we have financial can be managed better. So I don't know what strategies, perhaps I'm looking at Prof. I wanted to ask that question to Seka from the previous panel, but I didn't get the opportunity. What strategies that can be put in place to better manage our public finances and reduce reliance on external aid? I mean, the little we have, is it being managed as well as we should. You know, and I'm wondering if grants stop now. I think you mentioned the percentage of 40. If we just suddenly everything, see not just America, but everywhere else, including the funds that would help build some of these schools that are established every day, if they stopped, where would we be as a country? And really, for Europe to just sneeze and we catch a cold, America sneezes and we catch a cold. We saw that during the COVID. So we go back to Tacito. At least the minimum, let us feed ourselves. Let us feed ourselves. We have the most fertile soil, and I think government should really come in here and make it, you know, the environment conducive for private sector. You know, we're now beginning to see people like Ajay Kumar Defe and others being engaged in farming. So that is self-sufficiency, because if you're hungry, you have no time for anything else. When a bag of rice is $2,000 is $3,000. But everybody can afford that, so we need to do something there. Just the other question also, what anti-corruption measures can be in place to ensure accountability and transparency in government operations, day-to-day government operations? We know we have a problem. I know about the commission, but that's a different story. But it's just day-to-day management. Thank you very much.
Give it to the gentleman there.
Good evening.
Can someone help with the front mic?
Good evening.
Yeah. Okay.
Good evening. I am Tony Mendy. I have a question.
No.
I have a question for.
No, you want to give the elder priority? Okay, then you can ask, and then he can ask. Just go straight to.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I will continue. And Alpha will be done again. The Excellency Adama Baro Container, Gambia, Sanjita Warala, and Gambia maybe. Okola Contan Ku Soto during Council of Elders, Idabula Duku Yankono, during Koina Fokado. Ndamu kia manuti KMC Council of Elders. Damna lafta mengen kala wala mengen so mune parandi pardo ko nyin kama kadu ko nga jangen jandorom samale kana dengan miranya nasar lebih sai mine be do ko kunna ye Council of Elders ye sembo dila nga campagne oke koina fokaton kay tan mo la ko nga lam fana nga do ko e wala nga ko sambara nyaado wala kay mo sabal na banko do ko baya ate do ko ya sabati ni kabri independent mo so mo man ma sa ko na re man mo la ko dal balundi ja ka senole ke e ka na ti do so ko e ka kar sabado ko mo ko ye muruna ye ne la Tendala yela fefero kije. Wato ni as possible no. Will ba ko kunna. Kanso ko dasente de paretale media e lankan ni alikalo ni gogonolu ani kansulolu na no kili goho ko to ni kacha. Seno nga seno mutanga do ko. Ni wo solution sododa ba kacha ta yinane jari na différence o jela min serum sama mankiliya barnin jigita na ko banko de diara mo no solution wala bebe sirinja abe ko yala
Ambaraka
ma sa ko ngade banko de ndi no wala intel fonde de na banko de ndi ni fam mi be ka do mo ja be ka do ko jani ama ko mo trabu chana mi kamaro la masinti je mi ka afabri ika sene woto nga bili dum fu nga ko be do ko ke do la na ba ko ko do la ko la ya ko so na bunna fulo nya Gambia security force be je la metel pula ira do ko yimma ka to ko mo ko mu te la ko ya baaya bari ya te dawo dandi na do ko la yimma ate warsi le si burore woto be man so kunda dana je ma ko joro ye joro so sibo ko keno adiate nyami ka ntel fan fanal fone ke police o den na cordal ko ntel ta mon na bankoti men na cordal de ko ye fen ben de so ko na man ke normal ina ni ne banku ya nyana ndi de ko yebul ye ta police o ga ni ben en tondor ni ni ne do ko so ne de police o te ta no na no mo be ko wo mu banku dum be le duti de na banku kan
Wato kadale. Okay. Thank you. Wato kadale. Okay.
Yo, komi min denta almamuru miliya lonko na service kuna ni mo faare jang almamuru ni kulli ke da almamuru ko kuna de ke almamuru adi salwatu no na ma ke nyaara jama ko isina ma ante lay almamuru am ka sona sila su misiro isani mo ko predi budatano woto almamu la balunya alina nanga jibe baki mo la halo man kiliyan ko je nyama jeli assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi
America, the young man, can you give that? Remember, comma there. Give it to me. The young man, yeah, you can go ahead. Well, you just.
Good evening. I'm Tonet Mendy. I have a question for Senior Counsel. It relates to the land grabbing. I am of the view that the State Lands Act, which intended to give a managerial position to the government to administer land, is having a different effect to noting that now, more or less, the government is taking ownership of land, when in truth, the act doesn't intend that the government can own land, but instead it should manage it. Following the Baji sub-commission in the early 80s, what happened was that there was a policy in place that one man, one land, state policy. Do you think the State Lands Act, as it is, can address our land issues? Or it needs to be amended to avert serious consequences in the future? The second question relates to the national legal aid. The fundamental issue which I note that is affecting the State Commission, agency rather, is funding, because its funding is taken care of by the Ministry of Justice. Wouldn't it be prudent that the government separates the funding of, let it be a standalone, let it manage its own budget, just like the National Human Rights Commission is managing its own budget. That way, I think it's visual to solve that. And the second question goes to Prof. Prof, it's good to see you finally. I want to ask, what do the diaspora want in terms of voting? Because I'm aware, and the Supreme Court did pronounce in the case of Bunja Dabo and others, that indeed the diaspora have a right to vote, and that's provided for in the Constitution. Now, is it that the diaspora want a representation at the National Assembly level, or they want to vote in presidential election or in every other election? Because the law, as I understand it, is sufficient already. And even the present elections bill that is before Parliament is not providing anything so different for what is currently under our Election Act or decree. So I'm not really clear as to what the diaspora want, either to vote in presidential election or they want representation at the National Assembly, which is something totally different. The last question comes to Mr. Kande. Thank you for being the first person since I've sat here in the morning to mention EF Small. I was really surprised that in our job, Golden Jubilee, we are not, Diamond Jubilee rather, we are not mentioning such an important figure. The question I have for you is that, given that now we are the democracy and the space is opened up and there are several media houses coming up, do you think our solidarity and stability will not be affected by the politicization of media houses? Whether or not such cannot affect our solidarity moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Ask Kande.
that concerning diaspora, they are discriminated. I was one time a diaspora and now a parliamentarian. My first question has been asked by Tony. Now the other one will just be, so what do you think are some of the constraints that government is facing? Because if you ask government also, why are you leaving out the diaspora? They will also have to say something. They will obviously have something to say. So to your experience, what do you think could be the challenges that government will be facing that is making them not to fully include diaspora in all our processes? The next question is, that is not, of course, that is just a comment. That is attitudinal change. I think over now we are 60 years old. Gambians need to change. We should start to change our attitude. Because since in the morning, many people, speakers has alluded how we go to offices, how we attend our functions. We go there late when in fact we leave offices when it's not yet time. All those are attitude. Gambians need to work on our attitude and also how we do our things. This issue of Maslaya syndrome should be a thing of the past now. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the issue of how to call it, our politicians. You know, these are very important figures in our society. I think our politicians, especially our leaders, should be ready now to account their followers. They should go out there, and whoever is making these hate speeches, they should call them, because everybody who is speaking, you know which political party is in support of. So that leader in that political party, I think is that political party's leader responsibility, and call that individual, tell him that what you are doing is not good, stop it. I think it's about time now we speak frank to each other and tell us what is good and what is not good. This hate speech is giving us a lot of trouble, is making politics difficult, and in fact is derailing our development. Whether we know it or not, it is disturbing us. Because nationalism, patriotism, we all know that now Gambians has exchanged our patriotism, our nationalism with politics. We know that. So that should be stopped. And I believe our leaders, our political leaders, have a lot of things to do in order to solve that problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the man behind you, you want to give it to the young? Yeah? You want to go? Well, if the people are happy, I want to ask. It's time to go. Time is up, and we are already. Okay, doctor also want to take. So let's quickly keep it short and bright. Yeah.
Okay, I'm very happy to be here. So this is my first time speaking in a crowd like this. I don't know how it's going to be. Okay. Yes. Yes. Pardon? Okay. Yes. Thank you so much, Ma. I have listened to all the panels, especially Aji Job, Yama Job, I guess, Farmer Job, emphasizing on the importance of technology. Whilst he was at it, I was sitting down there making money with my phone. Yes, that moves me. She was on it whilst I was making money. Yes, all due to technology. But it all started 2 months ago. I just want to explain so that the others, my fellow citizens that are watching, that are interested, can come get to me so that I can show them the way. Because I wanted to leave the country 2 months ago, because but a friend of mine in Dubai reached out to me and said, Bachili, stay with your kids. Do you have a phone? I said, yes. Do you have a strong internet? I said, yes. Do you have an ID? I said, yes. let me show you how to get money without coming here. And he has done that. Because he is a Gambian, he has done that, and I was able to make more than what I did do, all because of technology. So I want the youth to please focus on networking, digital marketing. I know how far it can get us. In less than 1 month, wallahi, ya Allah is my witness, I'm able to get myself a car. Yes, it's outside, wallahi, I will not lie, all because of technology. This is what I wanted to share. Thank you so much.
So, Sanya, Doctor, we should start wrapping up. Time, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. I am Lamin El Sanya, the Information and Communications Minister of the University of the Gambia Students' Union. Yes, so my question has to will be directed to Mr. Kande, but first I would like to say, Dr. Fall, you had mentioned that the Gambia should be very proactive, especially when we see other productive individuals outside, especially Gambians, and we steal them, even if they are not Gambians. I believe UTG will also steal you and we bring you to the UTG. Yes. So, marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development. I believe as a country, in order for us to attain this self-reliance, we need to first of all empower the highest citadel of learning in the country, which is the University of the Gambia. And it is the university that is the garden that produces leaders who are going to run the affairs of this nation. And I would like to build a little bit on what she had said and what one of the ladies said, I think Ajiju, that has to deal with technology and digital media. I'm from the School of Journalism and Digital Media, and just like many other schools within the university, there are a lot of challenges. I believe Mr. Sankano knows what I'm talking about. That's why he's laughing. So we know that the theory aspect at the University of the Gambia is excellent. A lot of people will agree with me on that. But if you look at the schools in the University of the Gambia, practicals is lacking. And in order for us to graduate as self-reliant students or self-reliant graduates, we will not have to look up to big organizations to employ us, but to be able to start ourselves as entrepreneurs and, create jobs on our own. I think the university and the government needs to empower the university to do the practical aspect. For example, if you look at the School of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences, you realize they lack a lot of equipment. They do not have enough practicals. And sometimes when they go to the Edward Francis Multi-Gene Hospital, the theater is a bit small and it cannot accommodate most of the students. If you go to the School of Arts and Sciences, their science department, the same thing. The School of Agric and Environmental Sciences, the same thing. My president is here, he will agree with me. And if you come to the School of Journalism and Digital Media, which is 11 years old today as we celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of our nation, you realize there is one aspect which is lacking, the practicals. Lecturers who are very passionate about what they do, like Mr. Sankano, they will push us into film because he is lecturing film studies. Despite the limited practicals, he will push us into the field to learn. However, there are certain areas we cannot because there is no studio in the School of Journalism and Digital Media. There is no radio. Apparently, Al Jazeera had donated one some years ago, I had learned, but the government didn't give us because they said they fear we're going to use it for propaganda, which to me doesn't really make sense. So I believe in order for us to advance, in order for this nation to graduate students who do not have to look like journalism students, who do not have to look forward to QTV for employment or JRTS for employment, if we are trained on digital media, if we are trained on photography, if we are trained on graphic design, we don't even need anyone to employ us. We can earn on our own. Currently, I'm a photographer. I do videography. I'm not working in any institution, but I have my regular contracts where I can sort my daily activities. If the school empowers many students like this, the university will graduate people who do not have to go out to look for employment. But we can be reliant on our own. And when the nation's citizens are self-reliant, the nation will be self-reliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fa. And one more, and then we give person to. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think I'm also part of those who can ask questions. So I had a question probably I need to help answer because the lady who is from Transitional Justice is gone. I understand. It has to do with the National Human Rights Commission. Somebody said that they are directly funded through the Ministry of Justice. Now I want to
legal aid. No, legal aid or something like that. That was the legal aid, yeah.
Okay, then I dropped that. Now, I think there is one core problem all of us have agreed on to, but we don't have a solution. We really need to find a solution. We all agree that we are in a generation of people who seem angry all the time, who seem to be, to lack certain manners, that we, the older people, have probably got from our elders, but the younger ones are deprived of. I don't know how to solve that problem, but we need to find a solution. Because we cannot have youths who disrespect their elders because they feel they have the right to freedom of expression. Freedom of expression does not exist in the way we bring up our children. There is a limit to what you can say, how you can say it, how you address things. I am sorry to say, some of us have studied up to the highest level of university education, but we have not lost our respect to our elders. We have not lost the respect to people who are of authority. We know how to address issues with them without being disrespectful, without using a kind of language that will show that we have no respect to them. Our religions teach us that we respect authority. Our traditions teach us we respect authority. So it's unacceptable that the youth of today feel that because they have studied tobacco language, that they are being assimilated, that they know better than us, that they can disrespect authority or they can disrespect their elders. It's unacceptable. But what is the solution? Do we have the answer? Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. You want to say something? If you want to pass. Huh? She's having the mic. Okay. Let me give the back to the teacher.
Thank you very much. This one, I'm not giving the mic to you. I think I'm now going to be a participant as a Gambian. I'll put the DPP hat and the coordinator hat aside for a minute. He made a very important remark. How are we going to solve this solution? For me, that is what we are doing here today. Dialogue. If you have different opinion, that doesn't mean you should hate each other. It's just the approach that is different. Why in Wolof dañ dee wax ne wax lu ko yaaka niñ ko waxee la ku ne mu ne tiña fooña li nga wax dina nekk dëgga waaye niñ ko waxee dina tax bi ki nga bëgg mu dégga ko du ko dégga so mun nañoo waxtaan ñu dimbandiku ci loo xam ne ñun ñëpp suñ interest la professeur Fall wax na ko fii ñi nekk ci biti suñ doomi leen di man suma doomi nijaay la te nekku fi dugal naa ko jaama ndax du noonu waaye lu nekk dafa am yoon lu nekk dafa am waxin lu nekk dafa am ni nga koo defee biñ jëkkee wax ne dañoo am jotaay first time bi 2023 bi la ñoo waxe ne dañoo def public forum ñu bari gëmuñ ko ñu ne Gambia na nga essayé ñoo xam ne opposition lañ ñoo xam ne bokkuñ xalaat ñoo xam ne bokkuñ xeet ñu war a toog ne dañoo def dialogue loolu naka laa mun a amee ñu ne leen nañ ko test xam dégg na Sankano di quote professeur Fall ne ndeke mun nañ koo def parce que nit ñi boo ma ne ku fee ñëw da nga dox mbaa nga ñàkk sago déedéet ku fee ñëw da nga ànda sago lu wax naxari ak lu jëf naxari suñ ko waxtaanee dinañ am yoon waxtaan bi muy li nga xam ne muy yóbbu réew mi maa ngi gis ne léegi waxtaan bi amatul sax Gambia bu yàggut nii rek président Ghana bu ES bi mu ngi host Africa Dialogue kon mu ngee dem de amatul Gambia amatul Sénégal amatul Ghana mu ngi dem tuddi Africa level te àddina si yëpp sax suñ toogee dinañ toogi ba ñu ne global dialogue parce que li tax xeex bii xew fitna yi xew ñàkk a déglu wante moo am yow ñoo bokk fii yow emal fii man ma em fii suñ waxtaanee rek lañ ko mën a def suñ waxtaanu ku nekk ne man maa fi moom waaye fi nga moom naka ko bañ xam fan la wax daf ñoo mën a dimbale ci naka la ñoo mën a yóbbu réew mi ñi nga xam ne ñu ci biti doomi réew mi lañ parce que soo déggee ñu leen a oye diaspora
lu tax oyewuñ leen American ñu nekk American taxul ñuy wax soo dee ñu naan leen diaspora dafa am fuñ jógee ñu dem toog foofu daaxee fa wërsëg ak ku nekk yàlla lim la àtteel am na ñoo xam ne seen wërsëg ci biti la ne am na ñoo xam ne seen wërsëg fii la ne waaye lu ci mun di nekk suñ d'accordee ne dinañ mun a waxtaan ci biir waxtaan dinañ mun a déggoo ak lu yëf naxari nañ xam naka lañ koo delloo fi nga xam ne mooy waxin bi parce que kilifa boo toogee moom nga bëgg a wax loo xam ne yow daf la itteel lool nga wax koo xol wax koo mer wax koo ne maa moom suma boppa dama yaru suma boppa dina jafe pour mu déglu la de waaye suñ àndee dal ñu seet yoon yi xëj na tey mënuma egga si kilifa bi waaye gis na surga man ki foofu ma waxtaan ak surga bi su ko doo gis ne ah kii de li mu wax ni kilifa bi jar na mu yëg ko mu fexe mu egga ci kilifa ba kilifa bi it ne ah soo gisee surga bi yeegee ma lii de xëj na dafa am lu ci ne ñu gestu ko ñu oote wante ñu waxtaan ànd ak dal yar su boobaa billaahi waxuma si gannaaw yàlla Gambia dinañ ko mën a yóbbu si lu yomba parce que képp koy wax nga nekk bitim réew ngay opposition ngay government ngay loo mun di doon dafa am loo éeni nga ne danga bëgg a Gambia dem ci kanam léegi ni ki ñoon demee si kanam nag mooy wax ji yow nga ne nañ jaar nii kii mu ne nañ jaar nii kon nañ déggoo ñu mun a xam ban yoon a gën suñ ko defee dinañ mun a déggoo. I just want to emphasize this point. Dialogue, but with respect, dignity, so that we all feel that we are citizens, we have a responsibility and a duty to this nation. Why are we here today? Some people fought for us. Why are they called negotiators? Because they went to negotiate for our independence. Today, 60 years, we are talking here for a generation, not only for ourselves, but for the next generation that is coming. So that they will say, after 60 years, there was a group of Gambians who also sat to dialogue on how do we move our country forward? How do we sustain our economy? What can we do to rely on ourselves? These are the things that we should be focusing on. We have our differences. It's not possible that we are all the same color. That will never happen. But we can listen to each other, we can respect each other, we can express our opinions and our perspectives. And then others will listen, hear their perspectives, and then we say, okay, let's leave it to the general or the audience. They will now determine which one is the best, and they will act on it. Thank you very much. And I want to seize this opportunity to thank every one of you. Not only who are sitting here. Right now, I'm monitoring the media, the live program. There are so many viewers. That shows that there are people who are interested in this country. There are Gambians who want this country to move forward. But there are others who may see it differently. But that doesn't make that they are enemies. You can see in a household of people with different political affiliation. But that doesn't mean they are enemies. So let us work together. Let us always embrace that we are Gambians. We need the interest of the Gambians. Those of us who are in the public service, let us remember why we are there. We are serving our people. So let's work together. And I want to thank my dear boss, my brother, who has always been supportive, Minister Morts Sisi. He has been there. When he stopped and I say, I don't know, you know I'm troublesome, those who know me. But then he will say, Auntie Ami, Mubugarek Achalin. He gave me the courage. And I want to thank the National Preparatory Committee. They are wonderful. You won't see them. But we are on the group, they'll be advising, do this. Some will call me privately, do it this way, do it this way. And we had an excellent team and went around the country with our OP team. And I want to say to my MCU, thank you very much. You're wonderful. I love you all. And to my president, who said, Auntie Ami, just go ahead and do what you're doing. So that means we are being encouraged to bring people together. So I thank you all, my panelists, everybody. Thank you. I love you all.
So, I will give the panelists the chance to answer the questions. And Honorable Babuka Boy will then give us a closing remark. She has not done anything.
Okay, I think I have 3 questions that I'm supposed to answer. I think my able president, Madam Nenecham, you mentioned something about anti-corruption.
The chairman.
Or was it directed to me or? Well, I guess, like I mentioned in my statement, that we still have certain laws that are still yet to be passed, and I believe the anti-corruption bill is one of them. It has been passed, but in terms of implementation, putting the structures in place. It is also contained in the Constitution in terms of the structure of the commission, its composition, and its mandate. But I think what will make an anti-corruption commission to work is for it to be given powers directly in the Constitution to not have any interference from any government institution in terms of whatever it's supposed to do. And even if it's not reflected in the Constitution, I think the legislation should enhance that. And its appointment, I note there is a nomination process by the President and then confirmed by the National Assembly. I think even before it gets to that, there should be a panel, independent panel, which is a panel of citizens, reviewing the people that are going to be appointed in that commission. So I think there should be a layer of adding the citizens in the process, because maybe what the National Assembly members might know, you could have very well citizens with good character who can give additional help on that. So I think for anti-corruption commission to work in the Gambia, there must be a will. And I note in the new constitution, it is stated that when they want to prosecute, they can refer the matter to the Attorney General. I want to believe that the Anti-Corruption Commission, just like in Sierra Leone, they should have investigative powers. There's a special court in Sierra Leone on anti-corruption, and I think they've been doing a lot of work in terms of doing their own investigation on public mismanagement of funds. So I think the only way it could work is to be given the power it deserves. Otherwise, it would just be a toothless dog. And the other thing, my colleague there, sitting at the back, he mentioned whether the State Land Act is as good as it is at the moment. I think there's a lacuna at the moment in respect of the State Lands Act. It's a 1991 legislation. We are now in 2025. A lot of things has happened when it comes to land ownership. And I want to believe that the committees that have been set up by the Minister of Lands to look at the national land policy will look into this. And the issue that you mentioned is one of the issues that have been raised. Because you will see that, you have customary ownership of land. People own their land, even before the State Lands Act came. The State Land Act came and designated certain areas as state lands, as Combo South, Combo Central, Combo North. And in the State Lands Act, it is stated that, if you're in those areas, you're considered a deemed lessee. And once you're a deemed lessee, you can apply to the state for a title. This title that the state is supposed to grant to you has not been defined or has not been provided for. So what are we using? We're still using the Alcalo transfer, the area council transfer. And this, well, we hold it as title because the government accepts it when you're applying for lease. But one would note, especially the people that are into, going into the banking sector to apply for loan. Not all banks will accept a customary title or the area council, because you cannot actually hold, sort of like locate that land. So, but I want to believe that the national land policy will solve all these issues, because there's a lacuna. There's no prescribed form of deemed lease that has been, the minister has provided. The law says, well, the minister can make regulations and so forth, but there's none. So everyone is basically using what they found there. And also, this is also debatable, whether the minister has trustee powers or automatically, if it says you're a deemed list, the ownership transfers to the states. Because that's the conception. And I have a different interpretation because people own the land and you know, the government is a custodian. And that is why I want to believe if you want to acquire, you have to go through a process. That is the only way you could, you know, put the two laws together to make sense. Because if the government has to go through some acquisition process, then it means that, you know, that land belongs to somebody. And I think why, you know, there's a lot of problems in the Gambia as well, which I believe maybe the national policy will also solve, is that the acquisition process is not clear to Gambians. I know there is a provision in the Act as to what needs to be done, but I think there should be more regulations to explain to the community. Because sometimes, you know, land is taken for public purpose, which is going to benefit every Gambian, but the people don't, you know, appreciate the process. And I think it should be, you know, expressly stated in the law rather than just generally stated. And the compensation methods as well. The way people are compensated, you know, government has its own system of calculating compensation, which is different from the open market. But certain people have challenged it in the courts in terms of how they are compensated. So I think these are all the things that we should need to take into consideration as a government. Thirdly, the national legal aid. Fortunately, the chairperson is sitting here. Legal aid for me is personal to me, and I think the national legal aid should have its own funding. Because we talk about access to justice. If you cannot access justice, then there is no point. And I think they're doing a great work in terms of their limited resources in ensuring that cases of, you know, capital offenses are being prosecuted, you know, not charging the accused persons or their families. But they have another rule, which is the civil aspect. And it's there in the legislation. It's actually there. It's just that they don't have the funding, just like the National Human Rights, to be able to fulfill those duties. And I want to believe that, you know, the government will look into it. There's a National Legal Aid Agency here in Banjul. There's one in Basse. And I want to believe we'll have more in other regions in the Gambia. I come from an association whereby we provide legal aid free, but just to women and children. But you will see that most of the women that go to the National Legal Aid Agency are sent to my organization. I'm an NGO. I have limited funds. So I cannot help every Gambian. So imagine those women that we cannot help, where do they go? Or those families we cannot help, where do they go? So I hope the government will look into the National Legal Aid Agency's funding, provide them with more financial resources. Human resources there, because you have so many young lawyers coming from the university who are here and without a job. So I think, like, I'll agree with you, they should have their separate funding in the budget. I think those were the questions that were...
The chairman of legal aid just want to elaborate.
Yes.
Sorry, I just stepped down actually.
Okay.
As chair. So, but I do know that, Tony, I think you forgot, December 2023, the National Assembly approved the independent budget of now, after we fought for it for so long. So they do have it now, beginning this year. So they've been kind of been receiving it. Well, not quite what we expected, but hopefully, no, sorry, that was last year. So this year, hopefully, they will give the budget that we have. It is still sort of under MOJ, but it stands alone, as opposed to before where they would give Nala anything that was left.
Professor?
Thank you very much. The Imam Lee asks the question, why do Gambian professionals do well abroad and not here? And amongst the many possible explanations, there's one that's definitely credible, that is that it's a structural issue. In management, everywhere it's known, in terms of the result you have output, it's what you put in. And we've all been agreeing that human resource is one of the most important ingredients. But what do they go into? They go into a structure. And what does that structure, how does it operate? It operates within systems and processes. So the Minister of Public Service is here. The government recognizes that, and that the public sector, the civil service, do need a reform because that's the structure and the systems and processes here, so that it makes the best use of all the ingredients. That is human resources, financial resources, technical resources. And that is a big chunk of technical work that is not complete. And in my view, we're not even brave enough to attack it the way we need to attack it. But that is one credible explanation. There might be others, but that is one. In terms of the diaspora who said, I'm coming to help, that, the most serious people who come to do work, you don't even hear them say anything. Most of the people who say that, the chances are they're not even doing a lot. And that is also true with many of the things. The people who do the most work, the majority is quiet. They just get on with the work. The work is so difficult, so hard. They don't have time to be talking too much. So I think those who hear it, bear that in mind as well, that perhaps you are hearing from minority. Then the question of the diaspora voting, what's needed? Effectively now, as the law stands, as Mr. Mendy mentioned, the diaspora should have been voting. That's, the law is clear on that. Why are they not voting? They've not given us polling votes. That's the starting point. And let's put that in context. It's like you say, just as all Gambians have the right to vote, some people have even said, oh, you do have the right because you can come back from England and register and go back home, and election time you come back and vote.
That's expensive.
Exactly. So that's the equivalent. That's effectively you're denying it to me. That's like you saying all of Gambians register to vote, but you have to come to election house in Canifing. You come from Willie, from Cantora to come and register, and then you go home. Election day, all of you should come to election house. It makes no sense. So some of the arguments, someone asked, what are the arguments, the parliamentarian asked, that I use as to what's happening. Sometimes arguments that bad are advanced as to why the diaspora are not given the vote. Yeah? So that is one thing. That is give us polling votes so that we vote. But there's something else we're asking which the law has not created for, and I think Mr. Cisse mentioned, that is still under Section 39 of the Constitution. Not only that we vote, but we voted for. That is to demarcate 5 constituencies for the diaspora. It's been done by many others. In election, there is a concept that you do not vote based on acres of land. You vote on the basis of heads of people. Because who do you represent? It's not the land, it's the people. That is why an area with a high population should have more members of parliament. So that's the same principle you demarcate the diaspora. Our neighbor Senegal have a parliament of what, about 170 members of parliament, 160 members of parliament, and 1/5 of them are elected in diaspora constituencies. There's one for Gambia and Guinea-Bissau in this area. And it works. So the question, in Gambia, the Electoral and Boundary Commission is the IEC. And they know this so well that they not only, you will remember it, that in 2020 they announced the dates as to when they will go out to register the diaspora for them to vote. I can assure you that our own project, the MSDG project, have worked with IEC to the nth level of detail of the technicalities on the logistics of the voting. The question of the money, in leading to the 2021 election, the Minister of Finance revised the budget to provide more money to the IEC for if it was needed for the diaspora voting. So where we are with that is, it just should happen. It's a denial. There is no nice way of putting it. We are not able to vote, that is fact. And we should be able to vote. And then the demarcation should happen. And finally, there was the other question of, no, I think that's the, how do we reduce dependence on external aid? Not that we shouldn't have all aid. And here the diaspora is important. You see, if I live in the UK, I've worked all of my life in the UK, and I pay taxes here. some of the aid money from UK, guess what? It's my money. So as diaspora, in this case, I'm not a beggar. It's not just a free gift. So again, with this thing about being diaspora, it's an addition. It's not a subtraction. So I would continue to lobby the UK government to give it, because part of it, it's my money, and it's spending it, it's something else that I can have a view. But without any doubt, we've seen countries that used to depend a lot on aid, and because of their economic development, it's gone down. So that Gambia can follow that route. We heard it today. At independence, almost all of the money was coming from the UK. We've weaned ourselves to the level of 30% or so, but that's too much. Because guess what? Sometimes countries would elect a sociopath. And we know what happens.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Prof.
Concluding remarks. Thank you very much. I want to say, I didn't mention it, like NGOs in 2024 contributed almost 1 billion towards national development. And that is only 80%, 80 organizations that were, that provided the information out of 136. Not to talk about those ones that are not registered, that are not NGOs, but civil society, who we haven't known how much they have contributed. So we contribute a lot to development of this country. And as you mentioned, we continue to advocate for diaspora, because it's one of our key things we do, and we will continue doing that. And we will also recommend that regarding this dialogue, it's not from year to year, but there must be a midterm to see how far we have gone. I think that is important. It's all part of accountability and monitoring. I think that needs to be done, working together with all partners involved in this thing. But we shouldn't go, this first dialogue is the first dialogue, the second dialogue, and wait until the third one. In between, something should happen. It should be continuous. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was a question from Mr. Mendy about the politicization of the media and whether or not we can survive that for national unity. Yes, we can. We have, because politicization of the media is not new in the Gambia. Political parties have own media. In fact, some will tell you that Foroya is owned by Doi, and you will agree with me that they're doing a very good job of being a very professional media outlet. So, however, I would emphasize that the need for professionalization in the media, whether or not that's politically owned media or not, or whether or not it's media that is supposedly aligned with one political party or the other. So professionalization is super important in terms of that. And the second bit is there's a lag in terms of the regulatory framework. We have come a long way. We've seen a number of reforms, especially the Supreme Court in 2018 declared criminal defamation as unconstitutional, and revised the definition of sedition. Very, very progressive rulings. However, in most democracies, sedition is no longer a criminal issue. And I think Gambia having, we are an old democracy, had disruption, and we are now back in democracy. I think we should be in a situation where, sedition is not a criminal issue. And especially in the new definition of what is sedition, the administration of justice, the president, those people have enough to hire proper legal representation to litigate cases in the civil courts. I see no reason why public resources could be spent on prosecuting individuals, journalists, or activists on issues around that. And finally is the issue of media information and literacy. Yes, the media can be political, and I think it should be political, if you ask me. But if the populace is aware, the populace is informed in terms of the civic awareness and the role of the different kind of media, then we shouldn't have a lot of fear about what that can mean for national unity. So thank you, and happy Independence Anniversary.
Thank you. Again, we clap for one again, and you did very well. It has been a long, successful day. I would like to invite Honorable Minister Babukar Boy, Minister for Public Service, Administrative Reform, Policy Coordination and Delivery, for the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It has been a very, very long day, and the hall is almost empty. So I don't really want to keep you long here. It was a day that was dedicated for what we call a national dialogue. And in dialogue, especially when it is to do with the duty bearers, I think your function should be more listening than defending or talking. I think what has been said since in the morning, from the first panel to this panel, and from the questions that came from the audience and some of the perspectives that were shared with us, I want to say that as a government, we have taken note of all of them. But I want to make particular reference to few, which I think are worth mentioning because of, their importance. Mr. Jha in the morning talked about two things that made his company or the work that he does to be successful. One was education, and the other was about the value system. Dr. Barry asked this question, that we've been talking about the attitude of people in this country, but we did not proffer, solutions. Honestly, I believe in that honestly. If we deal with that value system that Mr. Jha referred to in the morning, it would fix over 90% of the problem that he has mentioned. You see, we must go back to those days when the kids in our homes receive the necessary discipline that they should go with into the larger society. I cannot accept from any parent telling a government that you should organize programs because our kids are not, behaving at home. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense. How many hours do the kids spend outside the home compared to the hours they spend at home? I will give you this simple example. As permanent secretary, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, my kids all went to public schools. And one of the things that I used to do the first day of the term